I woke up to find a bright orange paper duct-taped to my front gate. In big, bold black letters it read, "Notice of fine, $500 per day until fence is removed." Under that was a long paragraph full of legal mumbo-jumbo, but I couldn't get past the first line. "You are in violation of HOA Covenant 12B. Unauthorized perimeter fencing is not permitted without written approval." I stood there in my boots, holding a mug of half-sipped coffee, completely stunned. My ranch sits on 12 acres of land at the edge of town, with nothing but trees, horses, and mountains in every direction. I've lived here for 15 years, built the fence myself to keep the coyotes out, and here they were, telling me I couldn't put a fence on my own property? The kicker? I've never been part of an HOA. Not once. Not ever. The paper said they'd already fined me for 3 days. That's $1,500. And counting. My name wasn't even spelled right. First I laughed. It had to be a mistake. But the letter was real. The phone number was real. And when I called it, things only got worse. But before I tell you what they said, let me take you back to how all this started. Back before the fines. Back before the fence. Back to when I thought my biggest problem was a broken tractor engine and a mule named Pepper who kept sneaking into my kitchen. A month earlier, life was pretty normal. My name's Hank Lawson. I'm 52 years old, and I've lived on this ranch outside of Durango, Colorado since my late 30s. I used to be a trucker, but after my wife passed, I wanted something quieter. She always dreamed of open land and horses, so I sold our house in Albuquerque, bought this patch of land, and turned it into something she'd have loved. Most days, I wake up before sunrise, check on the animals, have some eggs and toast, and putter around fixing fences or checking irrigation lines. It's peaceful, honest work. One day in early March, I noticed a young couple parked at the edge of my gravel drive, a big white SUV with Florida plates. I waved as I walked by with a bag of feed slung over my shoulder, and the woman rolled down her window. "Excuse me, is this Redstone Meadows?" she asked. I blinked. "Nope, this here's Lawson Ranch. Redstone's a good 10 miles west." "Oh, sorry," she smiled, embarrassed. "The GPS keeps rerouting us." "No problem," I said. "Happens a lot out here. Folks get turned around all the time." The guy leaned over. "You sure you're not part of Redstone Meadows? Our realtor said there was a corner lot with a view of the mountains." I shook my head. "I've been here since '09. Ain't no HOA out here. Just me and my mule." They laughed, waved, and drove off. Didn't think much of it. Over the next couple weeks, more people started showing up. Most of them looked like city folks. Clean sneakers, Starbucks cups, always snapping photos of the landscape. Then, one morning, a bunch of wooden stakes appeared on the far side of my land. Neon pink flags tied to the tops, and a little sign that said, "Lot 27 Future Home Site." I stared at it for a long time, confused. I hadn't sold any part of my land. Hadn't talked to a realtor in years. That night, I dug through my filing cabinet and pulled out every deed and land record I owned. Everything was in my name. 12 acres. Purchased outright. No liens. No development rights sold. So how the hell was someone planning a house on my property? Next morning, I drove into town and talked to Mary and at the county clerk's office. She's been working there since forever and has a mind like a steel trap. "Oh, those stakes," she said, squinting through her glasses. "We've been getting a lot of new filings lately. A developer called Fairbrook Homes bought a bunch of land near Redstone Meadows. Might be a mix-up. Can someone just stake my land without asking? Nope, that's trespassing." She pulled up the property map on her computer. My ranch showed up clearly, one big plot, undivided. "I'll flag it for review," she said. "But you might want to put up a fence just in case. Folks sometimes think open land means for sale." I took her advice. Spent the next week digging holes, hauling posts, and putting up a cedar fence around the front half of the ranch. Made it look nice, too. Painted the gate. Added a wooden sign that said, "Lawson Ranch is T 2009. 2 days later, the fines started. That's when the letters showed up. First by mail, then hand-delivered by some suit in a Lexus who said, "You're in violation of community standards." "What community?" I asked. "Redstone Meadows. Your lot 27. I just stared at him. "Buddy, I'm not part of Redstone Meadows. You're standing on Lawson Ranch. This is private land." He pulled out a folder and handed me a map. My land was marked in bright red, labeled Lot 27, Fairbrook Homes Subdivision. Looks like someone made a mistake, I said, trying not to laugh. That's between you and the HOA, he said. I just deliver the notices. Before I could respond, he was already back in his car, driving off in a puff of dust. I called the number on the letter. A lady named Janine answered, sounding like she'd rather be doing anything else. Hi, I'm calling about a notice I received. Says I'm being fined for a fence. What's your lot number? She asked. I don't have a lot number. This is Hank Lawson. I own the ranch off County Road 8. Sir, if you are located within the Redstone Meadow subdivision, you are subject to HOA rules. I am not in Redstone Meadows. Then you'll need to take that up with our legal department. What legal? Click. I stood there holding the phone, heart racing. The fence cost me over $4,000 and 3 weeks of sweat. Now some invisible rulebook was telling me to tear it down or pay $500 a day. I thought that was the worst of it. Until the next morning, when I saw men in orange vests standing on my porch with clipboards. They weren't trespassing. They were surveyors. And they claimed to be working on behalf of Fairbrook Development Group. That's when I realized this wasn't some clerical mistake. Someone had sold my land without telling me. And I had no idea how deep this rabbit hole went. I charged outside, still in my flannel pajama pants and boots, nearly spilling my coffee as I marched toward the men. There were 3 of them, 2 middle-aged guys and a younger one with a scruffy beard and a safety vest that looked 2 sizes too big. Can I help you? I asked, already feeling the heat rise in my chest. The scruffy one looked up from his clipboard. Morning, sir. We're just surveying the site for utility easements. Shouldn't take more than an hour. What site? I snapped. This is private property. My property. He blinked, then flipped a page in his binder. Lot 27, Redstone Meadows. Fairbrook Development. Scheduled for preliminary infrastructure next month. You are standing on Lawson Ranch, I said, pointing to the hand-carved sign over my gate. Not Redstone Meadows. Not Lot 27. This land's not for sale, never has been. The man frowned. Sir, we were told the land has already been cleared for development. Told by who? He shrugged. You'll have to call Fairbrook. We just go where they tell us. I took a deep breath, trying not to blow my top. Well, I'm telling you to leave. Now. The younger guy gave an awkward smile, packed up his tripod, and nodded to the others. We'll confirm with the office. Sorry for the confusion. They left in their white pickup, tires spitting gravel as they sped down the drive. I stood there for a moment, watching the dust settle, heart pounding. The only sound was Pepper the mule braying from the barn. As if to say what the heck just happened? Something was wrong. Deeply wrong. That night, I dug back into my files, determined to figure out what was going on. Every record I had showed the same thing: my name, my purchase date, no liens, no easements sold. The deed was clear as day. I even called up my old real estate attorney, a crusty but kind-hearted guy named Bill Carpenter, who now spent most of his time fishing in Montana. After I explained the whole mess, there was a long silence. Well, Hank, he finally said, sounds like you've got a classic case of land fraud. Fraud? Yup. Somebody filed false documents, maybe claimed your land as theirs in a quiet title action or misrepresented the plot lines. It's rare, but it happens. Especially in growing areas where developers are hungry for space. You're telling me someone forged papers and sold my land right out from under me? Could be. You'll need to pull the filings from the county and see what's been recorded. Might be an error. Might be something worse. How is that even possible? Bill sighed. Somebody's either very clever, or the system's gotten very sloppy. I barely slept that night. I kept imagining bulldozers rolling over my vegetable garden, concrete poured over the patch where I'd buried our old dog Scout, or strangers living where Mary and I had planned to grow old. The next morning, I headed straight for the county clerk's office. Mary and greeted me with a sad smile. Hey Hank, got your message. She'd already pulled a manila folder filled with documents. This showed up about 6 months ago, she said, flipping it open. A company called Fairbrook filed a subdivision plat that included your property. Looks like a title transfer was submitted too. She handed me a paper with my land description, but under the owner name it said, Fairbrook Development Group, LLC. But that's not right, I said, feeling my throat tighten. I didn't sell it. I never signed anything. She looked worried. I believe you, Hank, but this was filed with a notary seal and a signature. Signature. She turned the page. And there it was, Hank Lawson, written in thick, messy handwriting I didn't recognize. Someone had forged my name. I could feel my blood boiling. How did this get through? County doesn't verify ownership unless someone contests it. Happens automatically when the paperwork's all there. I leaned on the counter, dizzy. So someone just pretended to be me and sold my land, and no one caught it? Mary and nodded grimly. We've seen a few like this lately. Always the same company. Fairbrook. She nodded. They've been gobbling up land left and right. Fast, loud, and not always legal. I felt sick to my stomach. I left the office with copies of everything. A thumb drive full of records, and a deep ache in my chest. Someone was trying to erase me from my own land. And I didn't have the money for lawyers, not like these developers. I got back to the ranch and found 3 more orange notices taped to my gate. Each one said the same thing. $500 per day fine. The total was now up to $3,500. I tore them down and threw them in the fire pit. This wasn't a mistake. This was war. I called the HOA number again. Janine picked up. It's Hank Lawson, I said coldly. Long pause. Yes, sir? I want to talk to whoever is running your HOA. In person. That's not possible. HOA board members do not meet with residents directly. I'm not a resident, I said. I'm a victim of fraud. And you're trespassing on my land with every fine you send. There was silence again. I can pass your concerns to legal. You do that, I said. And tell them the next person who steps foot on my land without permission is going to meet me. And my lawyer. Click. I hung up, shaking with anger. That afternoon I called Bill again. He offered to fly down. Said he knew a few tricks for cases like this. Told me to document everything, dates, pictures, recordings, even the survey flags. Don't touch a thing, he said. Let's catch them red-handed. I spent the next day snapping photos of every corner of the fence. Every stake they'd planted. Even the tire marks from the surveyor truck. I was knee-deep in mud when I heard tires crunching up the gravel drive. I turned, expecting another notice or surveyor. But it wasn't the HOA this time. It was a moving truck. And right behind it, a silver BMW, shiny as a mirror, with a young couple inside. The same couple from a month ago. The ones who asked me if this was Redstone Meadows. They were back. And this time, they were moving in. The moving truck hissed as it came to a stop just outside my gate. The silver BMW pulled up right behind it, and the same young couple from before hopped out like they were returning from vacation, not trespassing onto private property. The guy, now wearing aviator sunglasses and a Redstone Strong t-shirt, stretched like he was about to set up a barbecue. The woman pulled out her phone, grinning as she snapped selfies in front of my ranch sign. My hand-carved Lawson Ranch sign. I stood dead still, hands clenched in fists, shovel still in one hand and mud dripping down my jeans. The mule, Pepper, made a low snort behind me, like even she couldn't believe what we were looking at. The guy spotted me and waved. Hey, it's you, he called, walking right up to the gate like he owned the place. You were right. This is such a great location. Quiet, beautiful. Feels like we finally made it. Made what? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. Our dream. The woman chimed in, beaming. Redstone Meadows, baby. Lot 27. We just closed last week. My mouth dropped open. You bought this land? I asked. He nodded proudly. Yup. From Fairbrook. Great deal too. 5 bedrooms. Horse-friendly. Pre-wired for solar. Super modern rustic vibe. You know? I stared at him, completely dumbfounded. You bought this from who? Fairbrook Development Group, he said. They've been building like crazy around here. Got in just in time. Place is gonna triple in value by next year. My blood was ice. This wasn't just fraud. This was a full-on hijacking. You bought my land, I said slowly. I never sold this land.